Very happy to have Congressman James Clyburn on with me. How are you, Congressman?
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. So you're at you're at Capitol Hill. What's the bill you're working on now? What's going on? What's the latest?
Well, we're working on this so-called rescue plan. The Senate is going to vote on it at somewhere between 8:30 and 9 o'clock tonight. They'll send it over to us tomorrow. But we have been in consultations with the Senate all day. I've been on the phone with Harry Reid, the leader, Democratic leader of the Senate.
So you know it's coming. You know it's in it.
We know pretty much what's in it. I'm still trying to get some language on foreclosures. I like what's in there on foreclosures. The problem is people don't seem to understand it. So I'm trying to get them to change some of the language, make it more everyday language rather than the legalese.
You mean the American people don't understand it, or your colleagues?
No, I mean the American people. It's a lot of legal stuff that I want people to understand when they go online and read it. To give you an example, people have gone online and they've looked at the foreclosure section, and they've got parts in there that refer back to paragraphs in front of it. And so when people see permissive language at the bottom of the page, they think that this means that you may or may not do it. And they don't connect that language to the section, the opening section that says what you shall do, but these are the things that you may do in order to reach what you shall do. So we're trying to get that kind of language cleared up so people will know what we're doing.
You voted yes on the bill on Monday, right?
Yes, I did.
Do you think it's the role of Congress to act as they see fit, or to vote how the American people want?
Well, I think that there is a time when you have to trust the fact that people have elected you because they have faith and confidence that you will, in fact, study issues and vote in their best interest. Now, the fact is very clear that there are times when people's emotions will not allow them to express themselves in a way that's in their best interest.
You mean the American people?
I mean anybody. I mean my constituents.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times my constituents, and I've had people who tell me that. I saw some people on TV last night saying, this is a pretty intelligent journalist says, I don't want to elect people just like me, because I want to elect people who are willing to go beyond where I am in order to study issues and in order to represent the best interest of the American people, irrespective of what my personal feelings might be.
See, part of the problem with this, Congressman, is that you're still not you're not getting the job done, and most Americans, and I've seen polls that show up to 80%, 90% in some cases, saying that they don't want the bill. And I will admit there are some people misinformed about it. I'm still happy they're voting against it because you're still missing the point of what you're going to do beyond this. I'm not getting any of the reforms. We've gotten little bits and pieces, but where are the reforms?
Well, because you all are hung up on the word bailout. We aren't bailing anything out. This is not about Wall Street. This is about the street that your listeners live on. I don't know a whole lot about Richmond, but I know a whole lot about Sumter, South Carolina. And when I see students at Morris College in Sumter telling me that they've received notices that they may not be able to get student loans because credit is frozen. When I have business people calling me saying they can't get lines of credit in order to put automobiles on their lot, and when I hear people tell me that they are threatened with not being able to put food on the shelves in their supermarkets but because credit is frozen up, these are the people that I keep in mind when I am casting this vote.
But see, let's go ahead and assume, though, that it's the right thing to do, which I don't think it is. But let's say it's the right thing to do because we got to unfreeze the credit. Most congressmen would agree they don't like being in this situation. This is not a good place to be in. So if we can agree that it's a good bill or it's a good idea to bail it out or rescue, whatever you want to call it, we still don't want to be here. So what are you going to put in this bill to keep us from being here again?
Well, that's the whole thing.
I'm not hearing any of that.
Let me tell you, we didn't have to be here now. You go back and see the bill we passed in 1994 when we wanted to regulate subprime lending. We told Alan Greenspan that we saw this issue coming. Let's put in place. Alan Greenspan decided that he was not going to implement that law. He said the market would take care of it. So now Ben Bernanke 3 or 4 months ago, used that same law that we passed in 1994 to rein in some prime lending.
Congressman, you know what? You're absolutely right about that, but I can point out on both sides where different people, Republicans, Democrats, conservative, liberal, even Alan Greenspan at times warned about this. Everybody warned about it, so it's the fault of everybody in government right now. This is not a partisan bit. Everybody's hands are dirty in this.
Well, that may be the way you see it, but if the Congress passed a law in 1994, the Democrats were in charge. I was right there. And we passed the law in 1994. Bobby Scott was my classmate. We were both worked on some of this together. And if the administration decided not to implement the law, then what do? If you pass the law, it's almost like passing any piece of legislation. It may be regulating your industry, and you decide, well, we aren't going to implement it. We aren't going to put out the rules and regs. Just let it sit there. Then don't blame Congress for that. And that's what has happened. This administration.
Who else should we blame, Congressman? It's everybody who's been involved in it at different times have warned. I've got warnings and bills trying to be passed by the president, the Democrats, the Republicans. Everybody at different points over the last 10, 15 years has warned it. I can pull them all out. I don't want to take the time right now. The point is, everybody has, most people being different sides of the argument, have warned at times, and still it has not gotten done. So if you're not getting the job done, who should we blame? We shouldn't blame Congress? We shouldn't blame the president?
Well, I didn't say you shouldn't blame the president. I'm blaming the president.
No, presidents. The people who have run America for the past 15 years, Congressman.
Just look at whose responsibility it is. The Congress has the responsibility to make laws. It's the executive branch of that will enforce the law. So if we make laws, as Ronald Reagan once did regarding your industry, when we had, and you may not, this may have been to your liking, but it's not to mine, fair comment laws.
The Fairness Doctrine.
The Fairness Doctrine. And Ronald Reagan says, well, we just ain't going to enforce it. If you go and check, you see the Fairness Doctrine is still law in this land, it's still on the books, but the administrations refuse to enforce it. So then that may be to your liking, but it's not to mine.
Congressman, this is unbelievable. You're still trying to point fingers on this thing, and I'm asking you specifically, what is Congress going to do to stop this from happening again? You know what I see? The real trouble here, on top of everything else, regulation, you can argue it was things like the Community Reinvestment Act that have pushed loans on people, but regardless, there's an underlying problem, Congressman, of spending in America.
I think you're doing the scapegoating. No way in the world the community reinvestment. I used to be on a bank. I used to be on a bank that was located up there, CNS Sovereign. I was on that bank board. And the Community Reinvestment Act will not force any kind of loan on anybody. The Community Reinvestment Act was to stop redlining, and you know it. We were not. You said, okay, just slip back and let people just draw a red line around the community. Say we aren't going to make any loans in that community because we don't like the way that people look in that community.
No, Congressman.
That's what the Community Reinvestment Act was about. That's
Congressman.
So don't you stop scapegoating. I saw this woman taking the floor of the House the other day.
No, hang on. I think redlining is actually a good thing. I think businesses should be able to, not based on the way people look, but based on whether or not they think they're a good investment.
That's what the Community Reinvestment Act was all about, to stop people from drawing red lines around African-American neighborhoods and not allowing the money.
Congressman, it's not about African-American neighborhoods. That's the problem. We're pointing the finger at that instead of saying what were good investments. It comes down to business people saying what do they think would be a good investment and what is a risky investment, and I think business people ought to have the right to do that. But regardless,
don't you make any decisions about me being a high risk just because of the way I look.
It's not the way you look, Congressman. I would say you're a guy who makes $170,000 a year. You're probably a pretty good investment.
My daughter doesn't make that, and I don't want anybody redlining my daughter. I don't want anybody doing the same thing to my grandson.
Regardless, Congressman, there's a bigger underlying issue than all of this, and it's spending. Spending. People got loans that could not afford them. Congress is spending like crazy. In the middle of all of this, Congressman, I just did a story yesterday where Los Angeles got $33 million for housing. In the middle of a housing crisis where we're talking about floating a $700 billion bailout, and you're still doling money out. Where are the spending controls in Congress? When are you guys going to pass this as part of the bill to get Congress to stop spending? You're the problem.